Good morning. Happy Rebellion Sunday and happy Mother's Day. Because I've got the power of the pulpit, I've got to give a loving shout out to my mom, who is one of the most talented, caring, self-sacrificing people I know, and I wouldn't be who I am without her. I love my mom, and I hope that everyone gets to spend some time this Mother's Day with someone who helps shape them into who they are. I also recognize that I'm kind of lucky in that regard. Not everyone has a fantastic relationship with their parents, and their home lives can be difficult. For some people, days like today remind you of somebody that you've lost, and instead of being a time of bonding, this is a time for grief and pain. And I want you to know that it's okay to feel that way, but I also want you to know that there are people here that love you and care about you, and that God loves and cares about you. This week, I and a bunch of the leaders got a chance to drive around and make some deliveries to you guys. I got to see a couple of smiling faces that I haven't seen in a while, and that was super nice. We at the Rebellion miss you all so much, and I'll keep saying it. I can't wait to see you guys in person, so you can make fun of my naked chin to my face. We're going to kick off today's service by continuing into our series of Faith into the Fire. This week, we're talking about the New Testament church, specifically the disciple Peter, and a miracle that he experienced well after the resurrection, while being persecuted for what he believed in.
Hey, good morning. Well, or for you, maybe it's good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are choosing to watch this. My name is Lenny. I'm one of the pastors here for Hope Community, church located at 755 Trademark in beautiful South Reno. I work specifically with our middle and high school population. Most of you know that, but as this is on the internets, some people may not know who I am, and so it's good to introduce myself. My wife's name is Elena. She's a math teacher at Damonte Ranch High School. My daughter graduated from Damonte. My son is a member of class of 2020 at Damonte Ranch. I have the yard sign in the front yard to prove that he is a member of the class of 2020. Thoughts and prayers definitely with those guys. Makes me think of graduation, makes me think of in-person, face-to-face meetings. Once again, don't know when those type things might be happening. According to what the governor said last week, May 15th is when we move to phase 1, hopefully, if everything keeps going according to plan. And then in phase 2, places of worship would be able to resume meeting. So the pastors kind of have a pool that we're all in. We're hoping, everybody picked a Sunday. I have Sunday, June 7th. And I picked that for a couple reasons. I think it's far enough down the road that we might be hitting phase 2 at that point, but also because it is Graduate Sunday. I'm hoping we'll be able to recognize and honor our seniors, our graduates from Hope Community here in person on June 7th. We don't know when that will be, though. So when that day comes when we can meet face-to-face here at Hope Community, once again, we're going to put it on blast. We're going to put out a video as to what you can expect when you come. There's some different things we're going to be doing to try to ensure it's as safe as possible for everyone, for the pastors, for our volunteers and staffing, and for everybody who chooses to come and participate as well. Online content will still be going forward. There's going to be a lot of people who will want to continue to watch online until there's a vaccine, until they feel safe about going out and mixing in crowds again. And so my good friends, Josiah and Garrett, who just, let me say, oh my goodness gracious, thank you. They are absolutely killing what they're doing. In case you don't know, Josiah and Garrett Scottborg, two members of my leadership team here, they're handling all this stuff. Right now, Josiah is behind the camera. He's doing a lot of the filming for what we do. Garrett is the one who's doing the cool memes and all the fun stuff.
That beats.
So those guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you to both them and their family. They've been tremendously helpful to not just the youth group, but to the entire church through this whole process. So anyway, hopefully June 7th we come back. We'll put together a video, what you can expect and how to be safe. So we are in the midst of this series. It's called Faith into the Fire. The origin for this kind of came from the idea that right now, with the COVID crisis and with quarantine life, our faith is kind of in the fire. It's being tested and tried. So the first week we talked about 4 guys, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Jewish exiles, hostages taken to Babylon, and how their faith was put into the fire during that time. Second week, we talked about this guy named Lazarus and how his faith was put into the fire along with his siblings as he passed away, and Jesus came and called him forth out of the grave. It was pretty cool. Last week, we talked about Thomas. Really cool story from the 20th chapter of the book of John, and how his faith was put into the fire because he saw his Lord and Savior put on trial, tortured, arrested, cross, dies, tomb, 3 days later he comes back. And he keeps hearing these stories about how Jesus is back. But Thomas was dealing with a lot on his own. And so he had to deal with those things. He chose to isolate, which we talked about wasn't the best thing. When he came out of isolation, got back to meeting with the disciples, something awesome happened. Jesus showed up in a locked room, in a locked house. Cool story. And then Jesus looked at him. He's like, peace be with you. Look, I hear you can touch the wounds. And his faith was instantly restored. He believed, and is a really great story for all of us that should be able to help us through this time. Today we're going to be talking about a guy named Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' 12 disciples. Fascinating character. And we're also going to be talking about two other guys in passing, but they'll be part of what we're going to talk about. Stephen, who was an apostle. We'll talk about the difference between apostles and disciples. And then also we're going to talk about James. James is a part of Jesus' inner circle. We're going to be looking at Acts chapter 12. So if you don't have a Bible, feel free to hit pause, go fetch a Bible, come back. And then Acts chapter 12 is where we're going to be looking at. So let me just set up the timeline a little bit for you. We have the events of the crucifixion. So you got Passover. Right before that, Jesus had done the thing with Lazarus, calling him out of the cave, brings him back from the dead. Triumphal entry, Palm Sunday. Jesus goes in. He spends a week in Jerusalem. Then you got the Judas kiss, Garden of Gethsemane, the whole thing. Jesus' arrest, torture, crucifixion. 3 days later, comes back, appears to all the people. He's on earth for a couple weeks. Pretty fascinating. Then he's gone. That takes us to the book of Acts. Book of Acts compiled afterward by the disciple, by the apostle Luke. So Luke got together with all the major participants and he compiled their stories. And he wrote the book of Acts. The book of Acts is about the New Testament church and what took place after Jesus' ascension, his appearances to all the people after the crucifixion and being in the tomb for 3 days. So what you have is the foundation of this New Testament church, which is pretty fascinating. They all got together in Jerusalem. They were praying. They were brainstorming what to do. And quickly it became evident they had to form a foundation. They were all part of the Jewish faith. And there were churches, there were synagogues, there was the temple. There was a structure in place for that. There was no structure in place for them. So they had to put together a structure. One of the things they had to do was appoint new leaders because this faith was growing quickly and tremendously. They needed help. So one of the guys that they tabbed was Stephen. Stephen was an early church believer. He came into it, he grew, and they were excited. And so he was appointed to be an apostle. The apostles were the leaders of the New Testament church appointed after Jesus' ascension. The difference between disciples and apostles. Disciples were the 12 handpicked by Jesus. Apostles, those who were picked by the Holy Spirit and the disciples after Jesus' ascension. Stephen is a leader. Stephen's doing a great job. Then, I said we'd be in Acts chapter 12 today. Just a couple pages before that, we meet Stephen and we see what happens. What happens is he gets arrested. And as he's arrested, he gets the opportunity to present his case. And he presents his case for the faith. It's this tremendous speech. It's beautiful. It's moving. You should read it. Then he's stoned to death. Wait, what? I didn't see that. Yep, he's stoned to death. Interesting side note, Saul of Tarsus was there. Saul's name later changed to Paul. Paul becomes an apostle, writes like 2/3 of the New Testament. So you got Stephen being the first martyr for the faith. Now, it takes a few years before we get to Acts chapter 12. And in Acts chapter 12, what we have persecution of the church going on. The Jewish leaders, the Jewish authorities were threatened by this new faith, which they often called Nazarenes. Jesus of Nazareth, they were Nazarenes, they were followers of this Jesus of Nazareth guy. So they didn't like that. They were threatened by the growth of this New Testament church, or the New Testament church. So Acts chapter 12, starting with verse 1. About that time, King Herod. I'll tell you about King Herod in a second. King Herod cruelly attacked some who belonged to the church. He killed James, John's brother, with a sword. When he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter too, during the days of the unleavened bread festival. After the arrest, he put Peter in prison and assigned 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending to bring him out to the people after the Passover. Peter was kept in prison, but prayer was being made for him by the church. So, this isn't the same Herod that we meet at the start of Jesus, like the 4 Gospels. the Herod that ordered the slaughter of the newborn baby boy Jews. That's a different Herod. Same family line. Wealthy family, influential family, powerful family with connections all the way to the Roman imperial Senate and the court and even the emperors. So they were appointed to be client kings of Judea by the Roman overlords, by the crown, by the emperor. You had Herod, who ordered the slaughter of the innocents. Then you had another Herod, and now you got this Herod. This Herod is being pestered by the Jewish leadership. Hey, we don't want these people around, these Nazarenes, these little Christs, these Christians, these followers of Jesus. They're an affront to us. They're committing blasphemy. They're threatening sedition and rebellion. You should get rid of them. So every now and then throughout the New Testament, you get these cases that come up where someone will be agitated, some Roman official enough to actually take action. And that's what you have here. You have Herod, who orders James's arrest, who was a part of Jesus' inner circle. That's an important thing we'll talk about in a minute. And then what he does was he holds him and then he kills him. Says by the sword. In historical terms, what that usually meant was your head was removed from your body by sword. He was beheaded, most likely. Immediately, the Jewish leaders were like, hey, good job, man, that's awesome. That's creepy. Peter gets arrested then. So then that leads us into Peter's story. And it's a pretty fascinating one where we'll pick up in verse 6. On the night before Herod was to bring him out for execution, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers. He was bound with chains, while the sentries in front of the door guarded the prison. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. Striking Peter on the side, he woke him up and said, quick, get up. The chains fell off his wrists. Get dressed. The angel told him, put on your sandals. He did so. Wrap your cloak around you. Follow me. He went out and he followed, and he did not know what took place through the angel, though the angel was real. He thought he was seeing a vision. After they passed the first and second guard posts, they came to the iron gate that leads into the city, which opened by itself. They went outside and passed the street, and immediately the angel left him. Peter came to himself and said, now I know for certain that the Lord has sent an angel. He has rescued me from Herod's grasp and all the Jewish and all of what the Jewish people had expected. When he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John Mark, not Jesus' mother. He knocked on the door in the gateway, and a servant named Rhoda came to answer. She recognized Peter's voice, and because of her joy, she did not open the gate. Well, that sounds weird. We'll talk about that. But ran in and announced that Peter was standing in the gateway. You're crazy, they told her. It's an angel. Peter kept knocking. Now I'm kind of paraphrasing and summarizing. Verse 17, motioning to them with his hands to be silent, he explained how the Lord had brought him out of prison. Report these things to James and to the brothers, and then he departed and he went to a different place. At daylight, there was a great commotion among the soldiers to what could have become of Peter. After Herod had searched and did not find him, he interrogated the guards and ordered their execution. And we'll stop there. So I love this story. What you've got Peter who gets arrested after James has been beheaded. We're going to talk about what might have been going through Peter's head. He gets arrested. He's put into the prison cell. 4 sets of guards watching him. 4 squads of guards, taking shifts, making sure he doesn't disappear. Word of what happened to Jesus is still fresh in people's minds. How did that body disappear? We got to watch this guy. So he's chained. He's got guards on each side. Middle of the night. Here comes the angel. The angel sets him free, takes him out. He goes to the house like a safe house. And they're so shocked, they don't know what to do. He reports what's going on, then he goes to a different place. All right. Let's talk about what must have been going through Peter's mind. Peter had to have been, and I'm not trying to speak for Peter, and the word does not tell us this. I would like to think that Peter must have been terrified, though. Peter was a part of the inner circle with James and John. They're the ones that were mentioned the most in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John with Jesus. And here you have, he's arrested. He has seen his buddy arrested and beheaded. So he was probably going through some mourning process. He was probably afraid, thinking, I'm next. I would like to think he was terrified. Now, it doesn't say that. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe his faith was so strong that he wasn't terrified, that he was completely fine with whatever happened. That is possible. And that might explain why he was asleep. Or maybe he just passed out from fear. But we know that he was asleep. The angel comes in, sets him free. You know, what I really get out of this, the first thing, and I only have 2 points today, is that it's never over till it's over. It's never over till it's over. You know, I work with a lot of middle school and high school kids. And man, if I had $1 for every time I've had a middle school or high school kid tell me, oh, that's it, man. I'm done. I'm going to get an F in this class. It's terrible. I didn't turn in this report. I didn't do this test. I didn't do this or that. I would be a rich man. But then you know what happens is they go and talk to the teacher. And they make up the homework and they start studying and they get a 2, and all of a sudden they're getting an A or a B or maybe even a C, but they're not flunking the class. It's never over till it's over. Peter might have thought it was over. He'd seen James die. He was arrested. He knows he's next. He might have thought it was over, but it wasn't over. We often have a tendency to fall into that same type of fatalistic thinking. Oh, that's it. It's over. It's not over till it's over. And right now, it might be hard for us to see an end in sight for this whole coronavirus thing. We don't have a vaccine. We don't know when we're going to be able to go back to school and work and things like that. Man, we don't know what's going to look like in the fall or next flu season. But it's never over till it's over. Peter learned that. And this wasn't the only time Peter learned that. When you follow Jesus, man, miraculous things happen all the time. In Bill Sherman, our lead pastor's teaching today, he talks about the fact that our God is a God of possibilities. And actually, the way I like to think of it, our God is a God of impossibilities. When things seem most impossible, most improbable, that's when God comes through for us. And that's what it looked like for Peter. It was improbable, impossible for him to get out of that situation, and God got him out of that situation. So, the second part that I really like about this, that I think we can all really get a lot out of. Oh, yeah, okay. So the second thing that I really got out of this story, that I think we can all get a lot out of, is the idea that we don't have to come to our own rescue. You know, a lot of times we think we have to take action in a situation. And so what I like to think about, I look at this story. We don't see Peter protesting. You don't see the New Testament church come to his rescue. They could have tried to come with swords and shields, whatever weapons they could have accumulated, and tried to break him out because he was so important to them in their faith. Instead, what were they doing? They were gathered at Mary's house, praying for him. And that's specifically what it says there in chapter 12. They were praying for Peter. What's the most important and powerful thing we can do? We could pray. It wasn't about getting together with weapons and trying to break him out. It was about praying for him. Man, so often we think we have to come up with a solution, a way to get ourselves out of it, a way to extricate out of a situation, a way to address something. Instead, get on your knees and pray. Give it over to God. I mean, I've talked about this many, many times. When I try to take action in a situation, it seems like most of the time it goes poorly. When I just pray about it and I wait and I let God, or I let the Holy Spirit really take a root in a situation, better things happen. And that's what happened here. Peter didn't take action. The New Testament church didn't take action. They prayed. They trusted in God to do something remarkable, improbable, something impossible. And that's exactly what happened. Now, before I finish up this morning, afternoon, evening, I want to look back at the start of chapter 12 here. Is there something that is really disturbing, I think? It says here that, about that time, King Herod cruelly attacked some who belonged to the church. He killed James, John's brother, with a sword. I've mentioned a couple times that he was a part of the inner circle, Peter, James, and John. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, the sons of thunder. He gets beheaded here. I'd like you to Google. Go and take some time. Not right now, later. Google, why did God save Peter and not James? I spent a lot of time doing that. I couldn't find anything I really liked. I even asked the other pastors here at Hope, what do you guys think? And we talked about it for a while, but nothing really resonated with me. So I started pondering on it. I started praying about it. And here's what came to mind. I like to say it's from God. Don't waste an hour. Don't waste a day. Don't waste a minute. Don't waste a second. James had no idea when the end was going to come. He wasn't the first martyr for the faith. Stephen was, as I mentioned earlier. And he wouldn't be the last. These people all eventually died, most of them of unnatural causes. You don't know when your time is going to come. None of us do. And I know that's kind of a gruesome thought, and I apologize. I'm not trying to be gruesome, morbid this morning, but none of us do know. And I'm not really specifically speaking toward the coronavirus type thing. I'm just speaking in general. We don't know when that last breath is going to come. Our days are numbered, as are our hours, minutes, and seconds. I don't want to waste any time. Every day is an opportunity to point people toward Jesus, to share his love, to make a difference in someone's life. For that opportunity to come when someone might look me in the eye, hey, why are you doing this? Some sort of open door opportunity for me to look at them and explain to them, I have the love of Jesus in my heart. Can I tell you about my God, about my King? Can I give you a Bible? Can I point you toward serving and loving him and being impacted by him in his life? And that's what it's all about. And so perhaps what happened with James was a great marker for the New Testament church to remember that we don't know that day, hour, minute, or second when we're going to take our last breath. And so you have to make the most of every single opportunity that you have. And that includes quarantine life, when you're seeing the same people over and over every day, but you still have to point them toward Jesus, and you still got to be with them. So that's all I have for you today. I really hope and pray you have a great day. Thank you. Remember, it's never over till it's over. Remember that God is a God of impossibilities. He's going to get you out of any situation way better than anything we could ever come up with. And don't waste a day, an hour, a minute, or a second.
I am a fan of this series. It's challenging. It raises a lot of questions to me that I'd love to discuss with you guys and figure out. Today's service is sort of like that rhyme about weddings. We've got something old, something new, something borrowed, but actually nothing blue on hand, which is unfortunate. But you know what? Sometimes things don't line up nice and evenly like that in life. So you get what you get. For today, we're going to rerun a couple of songs that were recorded earlier in the quarantine, but they are some of our favorites. There's talk of finding a way to do worship night via a big Zoom call in the next couple of weeks. More details on that to come. I can't wait to sing and praise in the crowd with you guys again, but in the meantime, this will have to do. Check out our YouTube for these songs so you can play them on repeat wherever you feel like it. I love you all, and I hope you have a fantastic Mother's Day and a great rest of the week.
here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you.
You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are.
Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop.
Promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are.
Yes, it is. Oh,
That is who